Now, 16 years on from the national apology to the stolen generation, Anthony Albanese has delivered the government's annual Closing the Gap statement. The Prime Minister says while 11 of 19 targets are improving, 4 critical areas are worsening. The centrepiece of the government's latest implementation strategy is a remote jobs program. It's aiming to generate 3,000 new jobs over the next 3 years at a cost of $707 million. Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney says a government knows best approach is proven not to work.
The same old approach of insisting that government knows best has not worked. And it is in that spirit today the Albanese Labor government announces, as the Prime Minister said, a new jobs program to create 3,000 jobs in remote community.
Real jobs with proper wages and decent conditions. Jobs developed in partnership with Indigenous communities. Jobs that will build skills that communities want. Jobs that deliver services that communities want.
Will it be run from Canberra? How much autonomy will be provided to those in Indigenous leadership positions? If almost $750 million is to be spent on the program, there must be guarantees that the 3,000 jobs figure is achievable, rather than simply being a wishful target.
The community development program has around 40,000 people on it. We came to government saying that program was not working, it wasn't efficient. It needed to actually create dignity in the workforce. People were painting rocks, they were just mowing lawns. We needed to be able to do more things to get training and employment.
Trudy, this announcement today and the Closing the Gap statement, the first that the Prime Minister has made since the failure of the Voice to Parliament.
And the first big policy foray we've seen since then, since the referendum. It surprised me that they didn't have something else ready to go, that this was all we talked about for 6 months, and then the government didn't have anything else to talk about in terms of actually improving Indigenous disadvantage. Yet again, and you've sat in this parliament, Kieran, longer than I have, both of you have, but every year you hear how things are not on track. And every year it seems like nothing gets better despite what governments do. Each year you can point to 4 things getting worse: kids' development, out-of-home care, prison rates and suicide as well, alarmingly. It's pretty disheartening every year to hear politicians from both sides say the same thing and nothing changes.
And everything old is new again in this space, Kieran. When it came to the apology in John Howard's government, he started talking up practical reconciliation. Anthony Albanese fails on the Voice, and guess what we're talking about? Practical reconciliation. But these are baby steps. And it's hard to escape the thought today that, unfortunately, with the Voice and its failure, it's actually set back the Closing the Gap at the moment. This government needs to do some more heavy lifting. They put the Voice question there. They put the question there. They put the issue in front of people, and that now they need to perform in that space. They can't just sweep it away because people don't want to know about it. That's not good enough from our federal governments.
There is a bipartisan support to close the gap, different views as to how to get there. Here was a little of Peter Dutton further in his speech.
We've been too content to maintain approaches which we know are not working. We've made the mistake in thinking that more bureaucracy translates into better outcomes. We all must accept the fact that if we continue to do more of the same, we will only get more of the same. And that's why today I renew my calls for the government to implement a Royal Commission into child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities.
Ashley Gillen, while there was bitter politics around the Voice, as you could hear there from the passion in Peter Dutton's voice too, the opposition committed to closing the gap and doing their best to do so. Tragically, as Trudy said, it's almost the Groundhog Day feeling when you see the tragedy of suicide rates, prison rates continuing to go backwards.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing everyone can agree on is that what we've been doing up to this point isn't working. Government after government's grappled with these issues, and you look, as you've all made the point, we're not seeing the sort of improvements that everybody would like to see. Kieran, you probably remember, and I do too, I think it was back in 2007 or 2008 when this closing the gap idea really became part of the language about how we spoke about Indigenous policy. And back then it did really feel revolutionary in terms of publishing and adding a real level of transparency to those statistics about how large the gap is, whether or not it's widening or closing. But, you know, this many years on, 15, 16 years, it is devastating to see some of those areas, children development and suicide rates, as you say, getting even worse. And look, I think you're right, Labor has felt a bit lost in that area after The Voice, after being so confident initially that The Voice was the answer, or at least a major step towards being an answer. It does feel like it's really back to the drawing board, and that's a position that government after government's really grappled with and ultimately failed in up till now.